1. Hey, everybody, I'm Gina Trimarco, Master Sales Trainer at Sales Gravy and the Director of Coaching Programs. And the best advice that I've ever received is also the worst advice I've ever received, and that's go get a job.
Come on. Best and worst? How the hell? Who said that to you?
You know, when I had lost my job back in the crash in 2008. And actually, before I lost the job, I kind of saw the writing on the wall. I was going to lose the job. And I started creating a business behind the scene, which was my improv comedy theater. And I went to a mentor of mine, a woman older than me, that I wanted her mentorship. And she's like, why don't you just go get a job? And I was like, no, it's not what I want to do. I want to go start this business because there are no jobs to be had. What do you mean go get a job? So that was, to me, at that moment in time, it was the worst advice because it deflated me and where I was. And then fast forward to the COVID, and my business was 11 or 12 years old at that point, and it was crashing and burning, and everything was going virtual, and I wasn't ready for it. And someone said, go get a job. And I was like, that's a great idea. I'm going to go get a job after I've had all this experience running a business. I'm a huge asset now. And I went to Jeb Blunt and I said, you should hire me. And there we are.
Wow. That's awesome. I love that. I think that, really, that is great and shitty advice.
Exactly.
I really like that.
Exactly.
Right? I really like that.
Full circle.
Yeah. So have you gone back and thanked this person and said, hey, that was awesome. Hey, you suck. You deflated me. What have you said?
You know, I'm down here in the South, and in the South here, everybody just smiles at you and stabs you in the back. And I don't want to say everybody. Let's just say we have a cordial relationship every time we see each other. And she's really good about like knocking me down to my face. And I just go, thank you.
Oh my gosh. So you don't just bless her heart and just move on, or what?
My inside voice is bless your heart. Which, if you're not from the South and you don't know that phrase, it actually means something else, and it's not let's dance.
No, let's stay classy, San Diego, and we will not go deeper into that.
Let's stay classy. But you know, in all seriousness, that was it was hurtful because I believe in mentorship, especially women mentoring women. And it was someone that I looked up to, and it really went to her, like wanting her support, and to be shot down like that really hurt me. But at the same time, I'm super competitive, and I'm like, I'll show you. So anytime someone says I can't do something, it just spurs me to go do it, to prove them wrong. And I'm probably the most competitive with myself. So it was an awesome thing that she did that to me, because it spurred me, and it got me to where I got. It got me to the point of, when COVID was hurting my business, I had to become vulnerable and dig deep and go, all right, what are my options here? What am I going to do? I've got all this experience and talent, and I'm like, I'm just going to use those assets and just find a different way to apply them.
I love that. And I love that you are competitive. That's such a great quality, I think, for sales professionals to have. Is be competitive, with yourself, even more than with your team, right? Like, be competitive with yourself. So where did that come from? Like, were you in sports? Were you always a salesperson? What's the story, Morning Glory?
It's so funny when you ask if I was in sports. And by the way, I'm just turning my phone off because, oh no, it's on vibrate. I just want to make sure it's on vibrate. I wasn't, I was always in the arts. I was always in some level of performance. And that was kind of like team performance, ensemble performance. I didn't get my competitive side there. I think I got my competitive side from my dad. My dad, taught us the value of work and work ethic. And he had us working in a flea market when we were like ages 8 and 10, my brother and I. And so I learned at a really young age to show up and do what's expected, but then some, because my dad was really good about rewarding for performance. So the better I did, whether it was my grades in school or doing a good job working in the flea market, I got rewarded for it. And those rewards were like freedoms and no curfews and, a car. And, so I got different rewards along the way. And I think that's where my competitive nature came from, is that the more I did well, the more recognized I became. So that's where my competitive nature comes from.
That's cool. That's cool. So you're from the north clearly because you said flea market. Because in the
Yeah.
west they call them swap meets, right?
Oh,
They call them
okay.
swap meet. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah.
So that's like,
So
thank you
out
for
in
a new
Cali,
education.
yeah, out in California, they call them SWAT meets, and they're
Okay.
big, massive, like places where you
Yeah.
can go. Like I remember, like out in the tar pits, I think in La Brea, my uncle and aunt would go to SWAT meets and then come back. You guys don't have SWAT meets? No, we have flea markets. It's like, oh,
So
okay,
I guess a
that's
swap meets where
interesting.
you meet to swap something.
Yeah, well, you swap money for stuff, and maybe I'm
Okay.
not. So if anybody's listening and you know the official answer, but that's what I thought. So anyway, so speaking of that, right? So let's talk about improv, right? Because I think that's fun. That's one of the coolest things about your background is you're like this improv comic person. So that means you're
Uh-huh.
funny. Tell me a joke, Gina. Okay, tell me a
Okay,
joke. I'm gonna laugh.
so yeah, I love that dance monkey dance. I love when people do that. Not, it's improv comedy is different, and I think a lot of people don't understand it for a couple reasons. There's this great guy who created the Improv, which is a string of comedy theaters throughout the country back in the day, but they were stand-up comedy shows, not
Right.
improv comedy shows. And to this day, I'll never understand why he called it at the Improv, because there was no improv. So that created confusion, I think, for a lot of people, that they don't realize the difference between stand up and improv. Whereas improv is we're getting on stage and we're actually making shit up. Can I say that? I just did. We're
Sure, you did.
we're another we call it MSO, making shit up. So we're making shit up without a script in the moment. And that that takes some practice, believe it or not. People think that we just improvise and don't think about it, but we actually have frameworks around it.
That's that's so interesting. Frameworks around no frameworks, basically, right? So frameworks around
Exactly.
improv about that. That's so meta, and yet so much about sales is really
Yeah.
about improv. So let's talk about that, right? So how do you train for improv, and how does that relate to how you train for maybe sales training or sales calls?
Yeah, awesome question. So again, I think people don't realize that there's a framework to it, right? There's not a script, but there are certain beats that we follow. If we do an improv comedy show, and anybody who may have seen like Whose Line Is It Anyway? Even Saturday Night Live, a scripted show, those that the show comes from improvising ideas that then become beats that then become, oh, we're going to turn this into a scene, right? So we have certain frameworks that we follow. So, for example, a framework could be, we're going to do a guessing game where the performer has to guess what the audience suggested, but they're actually not in the room, they're out in the lobby, and then the rest of the performers have to give clues for them to guess it, right? That's a guessing game. It's a framework. So the performer coming in to guess knows the job is to guess, but they have to fill in the blanks. So when you look at it from a sales perspective, we've got a playbook. We know what our sales process is and what we're supposed to be doing. We need that. Where I see salespeople fail is that they get so stuck on that framework that they can't think outside of it. I just did a presentation about discovery meetings, and how if you would just get more organic in a discovery meeting and not be like, okay, let me ask the next question here on my discovery list of questions. The person you're questioning can feel processed, but if you instead ask a question based on the last answer, it becomes more fluid and organic feeling, and the person being questioned doesn't feel interrogated. They feel like you actually care about them, because you might have said, at our company right now things have just been really stressful, and we can't have a conversation right now about working with you, right? The next question could be, what's been stressful? Right? I'm asking a question based on the last answer. This is really simple stuff, But people get so stuck on the, oh, it's been stressful. Okay. So when do you think you'll be making a purchase? Did you miss the part where I just said it's been right? That's where the brain
Hold on, I've got question 6. Hold on, question 6 is next, Gina. Stop skipping ahead. No, but totally, right? I see that crap all the time too, right? I mean, it's so interesting that people do that. And yet, if to your point, if we're having a conversation and you just missed what I said, like you'd be like, either I'd be like, Gina, what the F is that? Like, that's stupid, right? So don't
Yeah.
miss it, friends, right? Do know your framework. Don't
Yeah.
focus on having a script. Super, super
Yes.
important.
Yeah.
I dig
And
that.
again,
So,
the script is really important, right? And I don't want to say script. Your discovery questions are really important, but there's a time and a place. If you're in an initial first discovery conversation, take the time to build the relationship, get to know them, get them to a place where that they are openly speaking to you and you're doing the listening versus all of the talking with your questions. Like ask a question, sit back, then pull in and go, oh, tell me more about the stress. Like just the tell me more phrase that I teach is still a question but doesn't feel like a question.
yeah. Well, tell me more is so simple, right? Because it shows interest. I like to say investigate, don't
Yeah.
interrogate, right? Like
Yes.
really,
Yes.
what does that mean, Gina? Like, how does that impact you? Why
Yeah.
is it important? Like,
Yeah.
holy crap, that's like 4 questions there. And if I stay there,
Yeah.
to use the old sales phrase, right? We help people feel more pain and to really discover, oh, this really
Yeah.
does impact me a whole lot more as opposed to, okay, so question 6. So,
Exactly.
how are decisions made in your organization, right?
Exactly.
So, yuck,
Yeah.
yuck. So,
Yeah.
good, yay, good frameworks, not
Yeah.
scripts, friends. So, okay, so let's play with this a little more here. So, folks are on social, right? And they know they got to customize their outreach. So they customize their outreach and then they pitch slap us. That's really good, right? Is that what you teach at Sales Gravy? Is that good?
No.
No?
No. No.
No? Really?
No. No. Build rapport. Stop being trolls. You know what I do with LinkedIn trolls, especially? You do not want to reach out and try to LinkedIn request connect me and then pitch slap me because I will turn it around. I've actually pissed people off. They're like, oh, you're so rude because I literally say, your sales pitch sucks. I've literally said that. I'm like, you just pitch slapped me. I just said yes to connecting with you. Could you wine me and dine me before you try to take me to bed? Like, take some time romancing me before you just vomit on me. And I literally say that you just vomited on me on your needs. So no, we don't teach that. I don't teach that. The one of the things that we do talk about at Sales Gravy is like, don't do anything for 30 days. You need to, and here's my opinion, you need to earn the right to start selling things to me. You need to earn the right for me to consider you part of my circle. And that takes time. That takes time. You need to nuance the relationship.
Yeah. Well, you can do that when you're dating, unless you just want, but Liz Strauss used to call this a one link stand. Like, as soon as you connect, will you link back to me? Right? Will you link back to me? So this is like a one connect stand. Right? So it's like,
yeah.
Hi, Gina. I see you're really cute. And by the way, would you like to buy my Nikes? I'm like,
yeah.
Probably no. Probably not going to happen, right? That illusion of intimacy is such BS. So 30 days. I'm going to dive into that a little deeper. So 30 days, do nothing. Talk to me about that. I need to understand that.
I'm saying, I don't say do nothing. I'm saying in that 30 days, spend some time providing value to that connection. Don't be like, okay, you've connected with me and then instantly be like, hey, Gina, I've got all these people. If you're trying to get me to publish a book, stop it. It's going to happen, and it's not going to happen with you. It's going to happen through Sales Gravy and Jet Blunt. So stop it. Stop selling me your publishing business. I mean, actually look at where I work. look at what I do, spend the time to do some research before you think I'm your ideal client, because I get so many people pitching to me and I'm like, I'm not your ideal client. Why are you trying to, because they're treating it like a numbers game and they're throwing out a giant net and their attitude is like, I don't care. I'm just going to throw out this giant net and eventually I'm going to have success. And that's a choice. That's a choice, but you're hurting you're potentially hurting your reputation by doing that, because I then think you're not that smart. So if we cross paths in another way, I've lost respect for you.
So that's interesting because I see that happen on Instagram as well as LinkedIn. On Instagram, what they do is they set up fake accounts that then do that nut tossing by themselves, right? It's like,
Yeah.
ooh, well, I represent Gina Trimarco and I've got 0 followers and I don't follow anybody else, but I'm going to spam you and say, hey, if you'd like to get on the Gina Trimarco train, if you just follow Gina Trimarco, then maybe Gina will consider you as well. You're not worthy otherwise.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I got 2 today, 2 in-mails today. Hello, Phil. Your service as blank is really remarkable. I personally think you have what it takes to operate your own business. Hey, schmuck, the second position on my profile is owner of my own business. Wow. Or better yet, that one mentioned a contract position that I have, but that this person, the other person, said because they only saw the lead position, LinkedIn sales trainer, oh, perhaps you should think about owning a business. Are you joking me? Like, I know that is fake. If you are telling me you are chemical engineer at Chemical USA or a supervisor at Merck, and you're thinking I'm going to sell your schlock, you're wrong. And I say that not to call out Merck or Chemical USA, but because some schmuck set up a fake profile on their behalf and is now doing outreach. And within a month, those profiles will go the way of the dodo, and they'll no longer be available. So why do salespeople do that, Gina? Are they lazy? Do they not know better? I know maybe they haven't been trained by you or me, but I mean, really, what else is there?
I think it's a combination of all of the above. I think the laziness comes in because they're like, okay, let me copy and paste what everyone else is doing. If this guru over here is doing this, I think I'll do it too because they've had success with it. And you know what? There are the top dogs out there that do things a certain way, the Grant Cardones and the Tony Robbins and the you name it. They all have different ways of doing things. And I subscribed to this a long time ago. There are what I call guru experts, right? They're the guru experts. And it might be like, hey, do it like this because I've been successful. And that's great. That doesn't mean you're going to be successful because they were successful. And I think a lot of salespeople fail in that, is that they're trying to do it like someone else is doing it because they're hugely successful. Take some of those things that are successful about what others are doing, but then you have to do it in a way that's authentic to you and come up with your own system and your own frameworks and your own process. And that takes time. Social people are following you. It's always amazing to me. I'm always humbled by it on the people that do follow me, and then all of a sudden I get messages, or like, you said, like you saw me at Outbound, right? There's so many people that saw me at Outbound, and then they reach out to me. I feel bad, I don't know who they are, but they're following me. So you know what I mean? And so my attitude is, and I'm nowhere near guru state, right? But I have a little bit of cachet and some people know me. The bottom line is people are following all of us. Someone is watching you, whoever you are. Someone is looking up to you, whoever you are. And if you keep that in mind, that someone's watching you, that's how you have to always be thinking. How I show up really matters because someone's watching me.
Someone is always watching. That's a great reminder. I love that. I think that's so important. So let's get practical, tactical here about this and how we can use improv and spontaneity to really help boost our sales prowess. So Yeah, I know you're big on active listening. So tell me,
Yeah.
how do we take improv and relate that to active listening? Because I think a lot of people miss that.
I talk about improvised intelligence, and this is something I coined a couple years ago because I'm very much into emotional intelligence and the emotional intelligence piece of it of being really hyper aware of yourself and your own emotions, but then also being socially aware of the emotions of others. You can't really be great at being aware of others until you are aware of yourself, right? These are soft skills. A lot of therapy has helped me with this too, besides improv. But what I started to notice is, there are a lot of great resources out there on emotional intelligence, but not a lot of people talking about how can we actually get better at that? How do we get better at those soft skills of being aware of ourselves and our environment? And I started to see where improv, it really everything tied back to improv for me, because on stage as performers or on stage as salespeople, right? There are a number of things that we have to do on stage as performers. We have to really listen to our audience, because our audience feeds us suggestions for us to do a good show. And the people that we're on stage with also have ideas and suggestions that we need to listen to. If I don't listen and validate what my audience is saying or what my colleague is saying, I look like a jerk. So it starts there with really paying attention with what someone has to say, whether it's a suggestion from the audience that I'm now on the moon, or it's an objection from a prospect. I need to hear it and acknowledge it. And when I do that, I make my audience look good, because they feel like, she heard me. She acknowledged me. She's taking the idea in. She may not do exactly what we've asked her to do with it, but she's going to do something with it. That's when the audience leans in and starts to trust you. So it really does start with active listening, not just with your ears, but with your eyes, paying attention. I just taught this before we got on this today about the importance of paying attention to the behavior of an audience. Again, when I say audience, I'm using this for whether you're a performer or you're a sales performer. If Pay attention to how audience reacts. Sometimes the audience will physically lean in because they want to hear you more. Sometimes the audience will smile. Sometimes the audience will groan. Sometimes the audience won't react at all. You need to pay attention to all of those cues and then respond to them accordingly. That takes a practice, that takes intentionality, that takes being in the moment, and that takes you having to really focus on the other person and stop worrying about yourself. That's where the improv skills come in for us to be successful on stage and in business.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Listening, validating, acknowledging, paying attention. Really, really important. Really
And then
important.
add to that collaboration. So I usually say communicate, validate, collaborate. The collaborate is the part where you're like, okay, I heard what you said, and I'm going to add this to it. And let's come up with something together. I say collaborate versus compromise, because the word compromise often makes people feel like they had to give something else. Collaborate makes you feel like, oh, we did this together, and we both are now in agreement.
So we need to sell more like Vanilla Ice by stop collaborating and listen. Is that really what you're saying, Gina?
Yes.
Yeah, I knew it. Yes. I've been listening the whole time. It's clear. Robbie Van Winkle now actually is doing speaking, right?
Oh,
so
no
he's doing that and he's
way.
flipping houses. Oh yeah, for sure. He was at a conference with some of my friends. Yeah. So yeah. So Vanilla Ice, if you're listening, connect to Gina and I on LinkedIn, and we'll teach you how to improv and use your raps to be more effective at that. Yeah. So we could stop. Anyway, so yeah. So that thankfully, my singing is so bad, there will be no copyright infringement as a result of me attempting that song. So that's important. Yeah, anyway, so yeah, so okay, so wow, and there we go, right off the grid. Okay, so with that, so let's talk about problem solving, right? So you mentioned objections before, which I think are important, right? We have to listen, we have to acknowledge those, but sometimes a problem comes up, what do we do then? How do we use improv to help diffuse or maybe handle those crazy problems that come up from those pesky prospects?
Same thing. It's about, and this is where I really I'm going to really push on and reiterate the collaboration piece, right? So problems come up, or you could call them objections or challenges or obstacles. Really hearing what people have to say. Here's what happens a lot of times: we're in our own heads, worried about, I got to close this deal, I got to make this happen, and we're so stuck on what's good for me. When if we would just kind of switch the mindset to like, what's good for the client. I've definitely
Yeah.
had clients that I'm working with. Like, I have a deal that's closing right now. As soon as I get off of this, I got to get the contract done. And it was a long, long journey to get there. Um, but I finally got there because I endured the journey and heard their problems along the way. So every time they brought me a new problem, these weren't we were vendor of choice, which is important, but we had these other obstacles to get over. So think about objections as opportunities to get to where you need to get, right? Our job is, we're problem solvers. How do I get there? So again, in that improv mindset, or we call it yes and mindset. Okay, I hear you. Yes, this is a problem. Now I'm going to validate you. Repeat it back. This is the problem. Yes. Okay. And here's some ways that we can help you. Here's some ways we can get around this. Here's some ways, right? So then it becomes this give and take relationship, a collaboration, right? I had a scenario with this same client where we just could not get to a place where the money made sense for either party. But I came up with a solution. That actually worked for them, which was actually doing something a little bit different with our company. We're still gonna get a deal. They're still gonna get what they need. Not exactly how they wanted it, but they're still getting what they need because I thought outside of the box. I'm like, okay, how do I do this? We're far off, but there's another way we can help them. So you have to take the beat to think about, how do I get creative with my solution? Creativity rocks, by the way. The best salespeople are creatives because we like to mess things up and go, okay, let me color outside of the lines and come up with a different idea. As long as I'm still meeting the margins and doing the numbers that are expected, that work for the company, let me get creative with it. But I think sometimes, again, people get stuck in the framework of like, nope, that's it. That's all we can do. And they walk away. So get creative in order to collaborate those solutions.
I love that. I really love that. That's so important. Problem solving, creativity, and listening. Three important skills that you've covered with us today. So, Gina, if we want to get started along the journey of, hey, I want to use improv more in that, like, what's the first step or two that we can take as sales pros to get started along that journey?
Well, of course, I'm going to plug myself, right? Like, you could start at Sales Gravy University. I mean, I do offer a course called What to Say When You Don't Know What to Say. That's sort of the introduction into using improv in sales. Of course, I got to plug that. And that happens every month. And I'm working on a series of a spontaneous selling bootcamp series. And I do have a free ebook people can download. I've been talking about a playbook. Well, I have a book of play. It's like, okay, you got your playbook, but you forgot to be playful. So the book of play actually gives a bunch of different improv exercises and how to use them to retrain your brain to solve problems and to listen. So if you go to salesgravy.com/book of play, or just Google Sales Gravy Book of Play, Gina Trimarco. Okay, I think you got, there we go. You got it.
Yeah.
So those are some quick ways that you can do that with my help. Or wherever you are, Google improv in your area. Chances are in a larger city, you're going to have an improv theater. I know improv theaters are finally starting to reopen. Some are still not, some are doing virtual classes. You can check out an improv theater in your area and go take an improv class. That's where it starts. And honestly, I started using improv in sales training when I started having salespeople show up to my classes, and timeshare salespeople, and they all started like coming, like they started showing up. I'm like, what is going on? They're like, well, so and so just took your class. He's making more money, so I thought I'd take the class. So that's what actually opened my eyes to why improv was successful in sales. So go find an improv class.
Wow. Wow, such great advice. You're giving us a wonderful free ebook for the Book of Play, which is a wonderful gift for us. Your What to Say When You Don't Know What to Say, great opportunity as well. Or Google Improv in your area. Not the words Google Improv in your area, but actually improv in your city.
Yeah.
And then take a class or two. I'd love that. So Gina, if they want to know more about you, if they want to get connected with you, of course, they can go to salesgravy.com. They can check that out. But where is your favorite place to hang out on social media?
My favorite place. Gosh, I've got so many places. I've got so many places. I mean, actually, if you go to ginatrimarco.com, you can find all my links to everything, all my socials, and then stuff leads back to Sales Gravy. On that site, you'll find my podcast, which is The Women Your Mother Warned You About, which is a sales podcast. So I'm like everywhere. I'm on Facebook. I've got a business and personal page there. I'm on Instagram. It's actually Gina Trimarco, Trimarco.
How the hell can I not spell?
That's
all right,
okay.
good.
That's okay.
Nobody will see that. Thank you. Sorry, dear.
I'm all over LinkedIn. I got to confess that I recently hired a marketing virtual assistant who is doing a lot for me right now on LinkedIn. So just so you know, so you might get a response from me, but it's not me, but it'll still eventually you'll get me. So I just got overwhelmed with all the things. So you could actually Google me and find me everywhere.
Yeah. Gina Trimarco, you are a gift. You are wonderful. And I appreciate all of your sharing. If you don't know Gina Trimarco, get to know her. Even though I couldn't spell on screen, I'm going to spell it for those of you who are listening. Gina Trimarco, Trimarco.com. Check her out, get to know her, and start using improv in your sales. Listen better, be a problem solver, be creative, and most of all, don't forget the yes and. Thanks, Gina. You're awesome. I appreciate